Hey guys, Marseikid here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we are going to do the team building guide for the STR Goku and Vegeta that fuse into Vegito Extreme Z battle that is dropping on Global tomorrow morning at the same time as the banners come out, which is interesting. That is a bit earlier than usual. It is 5 AM UK time, so in terms of like, I think EST, that's what, midnight, and then PST it's like 9 PM, something like that. So a bit earlier than usual for these events and banners, but them dropping at the same time as the banners is certainly interesting for those of you guys who obviously don't care about summoning the second the banners come out. This is going to be, of course, another 66 stones that you'll be able to get, right? Because, of course, LR EZAs, only 10 stages, you get 3 stones per stage. And then LR EZAs always have a mission to just beat stage 7 to give you 3 stones. So it'll be 33 stones in total to unlock everything once you've beaten the 30 stages. So typical LR EZA in that the main way to do damage against the boss is with the legendary power link. So you want to try and have as many LRs as possible. And then when it comes to defense, the weakness category is artificial life forms. So basically you can beat LR EZAs with just a whole team of really powerful LRs. Don't even necessarily need to be artificial life forms. But especially as you get to the later stages where the bosses have more HP, characters who are not on artificial life forms will be taking big damage from some of these attacks. So whilst you can try and brute force through with strong LR teams, you can certainly get into situations, especially if there's like a couple of attacks in slot 1, where you're going to be taking a lot of damage in these later phases against with non-artificial life forms characters. So we'll be looking primarily at artificial life forms characters in this video. Obviously, you know, this is the classic, because it's a pure Saiyan's enemy, right? You could use like Tech God Goku or Tech Caulifla to be very, very strong defensive options. But of course, what with them both being TURs, they're not going to really be doing a lot of damage, but you could fit them into a team if you really wanted to. You know, they don't even need to be on the leader skill, right? Especially like Caulifla, because she has the 100% dodge, to make it a little bit easier for you if you're finding the later stages a bit more difficult. But like I say, we primarily will be focusing on artificial life forms, so we'll be taking a look at the category here. Not the biggest category in the world, but we'll go through, as always with my team building guides, my top picks and honourable mentions. If there's any units you think I miss out or I should have talked more about, do let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, if you do find the guide helpful at all, do go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, jumping straight in with the leaders. Now obviously we have the Gamma 1 is an artificial life forms for 170% to stats. He has 30% extra to accelerated battle or worthy rivals. There's not a lot of characters on this list that will get the full 200% leader skill from him, but he's a decent option in the sense that he has the full 170 lead and he is a very good defensive unit. So he certainly can be a character that you bring, basically I would say, for the leader skill primarily, because you do want to run as many LRs as possible. I always say in these LR team building guide videos, you can beat an LR EZA with a full team of TURs. It just takes a little bit longer, right, because you're not doing the bonus damage. But he can certainly be very good. He does give all allies 1 key and 30% extra defense as well, so that can certainly be helpful, especially when you are running a bunch of LRs, get that extra key for them, even though it's just the one. So Gamma 1 can certainly be useful as a leader. I would say if you're not going to run him as the leader, he probably isn't a top choice, depending on the leader that you pick, because there are a couple of characters that go well with a bunch of other similar types of characters that Gamma 1 doesn't necessarily fit into, but we will go through those, of course, here as well. Now, one thing to bear in mind, of course, even though he isn't an artificial life forms leader himself, if you do your summons before you do the Extreme Z battles, then of course the new Boo is an artificial life forms character. So he will be on some of these teams. Whilst he doesn't have it as his leader skill, you can run him as a leader, and a lot of these characters are on his team as well. But obviously this guide is basically assuming that you don't have the new Boo, either because you haven't summoned or you just haven't pulled him if you did summon. But of course, if you do have him, you can throw him into the team. Of course, he is a TUR, so whilst he's one of the top picks for TURs, he's not going to be doing that crazy extra damage, but he will still do very, very well. So next up we have the AGL LR Baby, Super Baby 2. His leader skill is 4 key and 150% artificial life form. So it is a little bit lower, but he is an extreme AGL and obviously LR. So he's very, very well suited to the event. Of course, you're going to want to use this guy whether you're using him as the leader or not. But 150%, you know, Extreme Z battles, you don't need to be running 170 or 200% teams. He does give 4 key, which obviously is good for LRs in general, right? If you're running 2 4 key leads. And then this guy does get his extra buff when there is a Pure Saiyan's enemy. He gets extra attack and defense as well as crit chance. And of course, we are fighting a Pure Saiyan enemy. So this baby Vegeta, I would say, is one of the absolute top picks for this event. And he definitely can be used as a leader as well. So this guy, absolutely a top pick for the team, can do a ton of damage, has the ape transformation if you get to 40% or less HP. So if you're finding the later stages a bit difficult, you have that ability for him to transform, come in clutch and do a ton of damage for you. So this guy, definitely a great pick and even very relevant to use as a leader. Then we have the AGL Cell Juniors. Now these guys, they have the artificial life forms leader skill, but it's only 130. So they're probably, we're sort of talking, you know, last choice kind of leader for the team, because a much lower leader skill. They could be decent on the team, however, as a support. They are providing artificial life forms allies 3 key, 30% attack and defense. They get their full buffs, including a 70% chance to dodge, by being on a full artificial life forms team. So these guys can certainly be very good, especially if you are running a perfect cell or cell perfect form. Then they can change key spheres to rainbow, which can be useful for everyone on the rotation, help those LRs get to their 18 and potentially 24 key. So these guys can certainly be good on the team, even though they are a TUR. One of the good ways to do LR EZAs is to have your 2 main rotations be 2 LRs, so they get legendary power, and then you can use TUR like support units just to juice them up a little bit. So these guys could definitely be good for that. They do have the artificial life forms leader skill, like I say, but they are probably a last choice just because of how low their percentage is. It's a lot easier to run other characters that don't necessarily have an artificial life forms lead, but can build a full artificial life forms team. You obviously just get more freedom with your team building if the leader skill is the exact category you want, right? Because, for example, we have the Int LR Cell. Int LR Cell will be good in this event anyway, right? Because he's an artificial life form, he's an LR. With his EZA, he can certainly hit quite hard. He has the free full heal transformation when HP is 40% or less. So if you are finding those later stages a little bit more difficult, that can come in clutch potentially. But this guy has an Android/Cell Saga lead for 4 key and HP attack and defense 180. So this guy can be a very, very good choice for a leader if you want to run basically him and a bunch of cells, right? And some of the other androids like 17 and 18 on there. But run a bunch of androids under the Android/Cell Saga leader skill. And then this guy actually, in terms of using those selection of units, this guy probably is one of the best leaders, right? Because he's giving 4 key and 180% to stats. So this guy, really, really good. I would say, even if you're, whichever team build you are running for the artificial life form setup, he's a very, very strong, very solid option to have on the team. So LR Cell, definitely very, very good. Then we have this Cell. Now, he has the slightly better leader skill, right? Because he leads Android/Cell Saga and gives androids an extra 30%. So if you want to run a team of a bunch of cells and the Cell Juniors and things like that, this guy will be giving them a 200% leader skill. You just have to bear in mind, of course, that he is a TUR. So that's one less unit on the team to have legendary power. The more TURs you have on the team, the more likely you are to get a rotation where you don't have a character that has legendary power. Well, you don't have 2 characters, I should say, on the rotation, and therefore the link doesn't get activated. But in terms of the leader skill, this guy, obviously, you can build a very strong team where a lot of them are getting the full 200%. So he certainly can be a very good pick for the leader as well. But if you want to stick to as many LRs as possible, maybe run this guy right for the Android/Cell Saga build. There is this Prime Battle Cell that has his EZA. He too is an artificial life forms lead, 4 key and 130. So I guess technically he's a slightly better leader option than the Cell Juniors, although still not perfect. Remember, Extreme Z battles, you can't use characters with the same name, so you can use this guy or the AGL one. So if you want to have as many LRs as possible, you can run this guy. He does heal on his 12 key super, which is nice for easy A's where you can't use items. So if you are finding it a bit difficult towards the end, having a unit that can give you some free heals is definitely very good. So this guy is a solid option for the team as well. Next up we have this guy, the Super 17. Now he's old and, you know, he wasn't even really that great on release. I was very disappointed with what they did to my boy here. But he is a GT Bosses or Androids lead. So, of course, a bunch of Androids characters can be run under his leader skill, including all of the cells. And he is an LR. He's not necessarily the best. Obviously, there's the AGL Super 17, but you can't use both of them. He won't fit on like the cell leader skills, but he could certainly be useful as well. Either one of the Super 17s, the LR at least being an LR, having legendary power, even if you're using him like floating in the 3rd spot and he's not really there to do a huge amount on the team, he's another unit providing legendary power, right? So he could certainly be a decent option. Certainly not a top pick, but he gets an honorable mention. Then we have Hachiyak. So this guy for global, we've just, I think recently with one of the last Battlefield resets, been able to rainbow this guy. Because there is a pure Saiyan enemy, he does have the extra damage reduction and give allies 3 key. So he's a really good unit to have on the team, even if you're just using him as a floating unit. He's got legendary power, he's giving the allies key, he raises defense on super and then has that damage reduction. So he will certainly be a very, very effective unit. Who I think you should be running on the team if he does fit under the leader skill that you're using. Because obviously, whilst he is an artificial life form, he's not an android. He's obviously not android / Cell Saga, so he only fits onto certain ones of the team builds, but he will be a very, very good option to put on the team. Then we have the physical Buhan. So I thought it'd be worth mentioning this guy because, of course, it depends which order you want to do the Easy A's. If you've done the physical Buhan Easy A first, then obviously you have this guy Easy Aid, and he has his power absorption or margin power 4 key and 180. Power absorption has units like Cell, and then obviously margin power has all the boos, and they're all artificial life forms. So if you've done this guy's Easy A first, he's by far the best leader to use because he incorporates almost all of the units that we've been talking about. It's really only like the Gammas, Hachiyak, but like all the cells, all the boos, they're all going to be on here. Now, if he's not Easy Aid, you could still use him as a leader. He still has those same categories. He's giving 4 key. He's giving less HP and only 170 for the attack and defense. But you could still make a really good team out of this guy. You just have to bear in mind that, of course, pre-Easy A, he's not going to be particularly good, like defensively, or even really that great offensively either. So that is something that you would need to bear in mind. But if you do his Easy A first, he's probably the best pick for the leader, especially when we then have units like, you know, AGL Super Boo, who's got type advantage. He's an LR. He does a ton of damage, especially if he gets hit first. So this guy, very, very good to have on the team. He leads Majin Buu Saga, so you could, if you wanted to make a full Buu team, run this guy. There's not as many options, especially with LRs, but he, even just himself, is going to be very, very powerful. If he gets hit in slot 1 and then gets his big 18 key super off, he could probably one-shot like the first couple of phases at least, which is pretty good. So yeah, this guy definitely a go-to unit for the team, I think. He's an auto-include for me for this event, for sure. Then we have the AGL Gamma 2. I thought he'd get an honorable mention, basically just if you're using Gamma 1, right? Because obviously if you're using Gamma 1, you can put this guy with him. They link up super well. This guy supports all allies 2 key and 30% attack. So he can be very, very good for the team in terms of support. I probably wouldn't run him if I wasn't running Gamma 1. He will share a few links with some of the other units. And of course, his leader skill is different. It does have androids as part of the 170, but Gamma 1 does make the better leader. But this guy can be useful. Like I say, he gets an honorable mention really only if you're using Gamma 1. But I guess to be fair, you probably, if you are using Gamma 1 for his leader skill, you don't really want to be keeping him on rotation. You want your LRs on rotation to get legendary power. So even then, I don't know if running these guys together is a great idea. But if you're very limited on your artificial life forms options, like I said, a full team of TURs can beat an LR Easy A. And with the 2 Gammas together, like Gamma 2 can do like multiple supers with crits doing lots of damage, right? So it's definitely not the not impossible task, but I probably wouldn't run this guy on a couple of the different builds that I would make, but he certainly can be useful. We also have this AGL Shape Up Boo, because remember EZAs can't use it with the same name. It's nice to have a slightly differently named unit. He has built-in dodge and fairly high defense for the first few turns, which pretty much covers the entirety of an EZA. So he can be okay on the team if he fits under the leads you have. If you're running some other Boo units and stuff, then obviously share some links with them. But other than that, he is only really an honourable mention. And then, of course, this guy, maybe we should have mentioned him a bit earlier, because he, of course, will be very good, especially if you are running a bunch of other Extreme AGL characters as well. Like we've got the Baby, we've got the Super Boo. This guy is giving 60% support to Extreme AGL. He also has the free full orb change if you're at 50% or less HP, and you have 2 Extreme allies on the team. Changes the whole field to AGL, which can be massive for healing as well as for doing tons of damage with either him or some of these other characters as well. So Rildo, if you have him, very, very good. And he is on GT bosses. So we talked about how like the LR17 has androids and GT bosses. That means you can run a bunch of androids like Cells, and you can run this guy because he's a GT bosses character. So there's a couple of the builds that he will fit into outside of just the straight up artificial life forms, but he isn't an android, so obviously doesn't go on a few of the ones that we've mentioned. But Rildo, if you have him, I know people, the AGL one wasn't a priority, but I know people summoned on the AGL banner to potentially get Pan. So if you did get this guy, he can certainly be very, very good as well. So going back to the category here, I didn't mention Tech Exchange Boo because obviously we might find out in the event news, which will probably be out on JP at least by the time this video goes up. We might find out that this guy is getting an EZA, but if he is, it's not going to be before this event comes out. So you could use him because he has a 170 lead for artificial life forms, but just like we said with the Buhan, like pre-EZA, he's just not going to be that good, right? And then when we look at some of the other, I think I mentioned like all of the LRs. I guess the Metal Coolers, Physical Metal Cooler has a Wicked Bloodline leader skill, which doesn't really do you any good. I mean, I guess to be fair, you can make the full free-to-play Metal Coolers team. So there is a full free-to-play option available here. But yeah, Metal Cooler's probably not the highest of choices, especially with the physical one having type disadvantage, and then of course the Gammas aren't out on global. If you want to make the Cells team, obviously Physical Cell's not like a top pick, but he can round out that team as another differently named unit. If you are running a bunch of androids, Android 13 supports androids, and you'll probably beat the event before he transforms anyway, so he'll just be there to be a decent support unit, so he can be pretty good. As already said, AGL Super 17 can be a decent defensive option if you're not running the LR. We do have the Android 16s on there as well. So, of course, if you are running like the Int Cell, Android/Cell Saga lead, or AGL Cell, then obviously this Int 16 with his EZA can be a very, very good support unit. This Rildo is a good support for GT bosses if you are running the AGL Rildo, maybe the 17s. STR 17s, I guess, have the Target Goku lead, which has a bunch of androids and like Metal Cooler and stuff on it, so that could be pretty decent. So yeah, a few other little mentions that didn't quite make the honorable mentions list but could be useful. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I said, if there's any units you think I missed out or should have talked more about, do let me know. And let me know what your team build is going to look like for the STR Goku and Vegeta Extreme Z battle down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.